Okay, so back to our wonderful panel and the last day's debate. And welcome to you as well, Carolina, joining us. Yay! Fresh and steady. I think the other half of the group now has the flu, but we hope it stops there. Okay. The last day, and I just want to make clear that I think, from my perspective, that there has been said things like, yeah, but we just use different language. We mean the same thing. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure if that's true. So today it's the last day, and we had a nice time. I'm sure we'll have if we meet each other again. But I still would like you to be like more specific about your own perspective, and don't be so afraid if it differs. Okay, because these differences, for me, make sense to just try to make clear. Because I think there are differences on an aesthetical, ideological, pedagogical level, which I would be curious to know. Not to just make some stupid debate, but just to see things a bit clearer. So, and I also would just, today I also just want to be more liberal about opening up for your audience whenever you want to, okay? Whenever you have the impulse to make a question or inquiry or come with an argument, you're very welcome, okay? So I don't know, I think it's just one thing that we haven't kind of, there's a lot of things we haven't talked about. But there's one thing that we haven't talked so much about that I would love to just hear a little bit from you all about, maybe to start with, and then of course join whenever you want to, is the role or the position of the pedagogue, the teacher. What is the teacher's role? And I think we can find everything in acting. We can find everything from the teacher that is kind of the guru, that knows the things, that have the knowledge and is going to pass it on as a master to his pupil. We have everything from this to the teacher as a kind of facilitator, trying to just, you know, make the students experience thing, and then you can make your own conclusion on what this is. And you also have academical ones, you have very practical ones that don't have an academic language for what they're doing, and so on and so on. So I just want to hear for you, what is the teacher's role and aim? How should the teacher be, sort of? What's the ideal teacher? Can we start with you, Carolina? What is the ideal teacher for you? Maybe you have met the one, maybe not, but...
I'm not sure, but for me, in the theater, the experience is very difficult to separate the relation between the teacher and the student. For me, it's impossible, because we are artists, and only we can transfer the experience or the visual, the personal vision about the theater. For me, the compromise, the autonomy, the responsibility. I don't know if it's possible. I teach the other to acting. Maybe it's technique, okay. But for me, it's very important the other concept. The political visions. How I learn. It's possible. I can teach something to the other. I don't know. For me, it's a big question, because in the audience theater is not a school. I studied in the university in Chile, and for me the experience is very strong in the audience theater and in India, when the transmission is very different. I don't have a teacher. I have a partner in the work. This relation for me is very important, because when I studied in the university, the student is passive, is not active. Because the responsibility is in the teacher, not in the student. When you travel, for example, the teacher is the travel, or the teacher is the play, and the teacher is the work. It's not the other person, for me. And the master is yourself, is inside of you. You are your master, maybe.
But the master is in you is probably influenced from the masters you have met somewhere.
Yes.
If you consider them as masters.
For me it's very important the question, what I need in my work. Okay, I decided I want to do work in the theater, but what does mean this decision for me? Okay, it's an option in my life. This is what happened in this relation. You have other experience, and I have other experience. And together, what happened in this meeting? This is the horizontal relation is very, very important. The audience theater, the actors have 16 years old, and for me, I have 30 years. They have many, many experience, but I know different things.
Thank you. I want to welcome you as well, Kamalara. You have been away for a day, and now you're back to stay with us the last couple of days. So, what is a perfect teacher for you?
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Carolina, about the master being in you. So I don't want to touch that because I think she said some very relevant things which I agree with. But I would add to that that the teacher is someone who can fail publicly, and the student learns that they can fail. So the teacher allows failure in themselves, and whether you're teaching technique or whether you're teaching theory, or I think this is a larger philosophical value in the role of a teacher. I think
the self-image of the teacher is quite important for you, some of them.
It's
or the confidence, or how you think about yourself.
I think it's but rather than try to generalize about people's self-image, I would just say that it's an action that a teacher is one who allows failure to enter the room through them, as much as knowledge, success, information, possibility, structure. Our responsibility in a foundational level, I think, is to provide structures for things to happen. So we're responsible to bring structures into a room and to provide possibilities or potentialities. But they get shifted, they get changed because of what happens in the room. And I think an interesting teacher is one who responds to those changes so that the student challenges what's happening and questions it, and the teacher is questioning then in response with them, rather than just downloading truth or saying, no, that's wrong, this is right, all the time. There are certain maybe architectural, anatomical things that we say, no, if you do this, this will happen, try it another way. But I think a hidden and very important value is the willingness to fail. Hopefully not hidden. But
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to also have a comment on this?
I agree on a lot of these things. And also I think you said that you cannot really teach art. That is there, and that's a search for everyone. But I do think a school with teachers and students is a place where you can have time and space to get some sort of structure. And the teacher could teach a structure, any structure. You could call it a method, a technique, whatever, in order for the student to create their own structure, individual structure, method. But at the same time, you have to open up for the other side. We could call that the intuitive or creative or whatever. So it cannot be too square, and it cannot be too chaotic. It has to be, again, on the edge there between order and chaos. And that, because that's where the creative process is placed. And a good teacher can create that place together with the students, not alone. And together with the structure of a school.
Brief comment from Lara.
It's just that I forgot something really important I meant to say. My brain was a little behind. In addition to all of that, I think a teacher should actually provoke you. Which means
Why is it important to provoke the student?
Well, I mean, I think some of what you said today, Jean-Luc, is relevant to that point, that there are potentials in us that actually, by being put in the face of crisis or questions we're not used to being faced with, allow us to find how we provoke, what we're provoking. This is very political and I think also very individual in terms of our teaching styles. But
Thanks. I'm going to give you the word next. Just want to comment on the...
But you can also say that maybe it's not the teacher that should provoke, but the teacher should create an atmosphere where the work provokes you into new fields.
Okay, I like to say that I like working with different teachers, but when I found that when a teacher is consider himself a master, then I learn less, because then the ego of the master is put into the room and it's very vulnerable, and it becomes also the responsibility of the pupil to protect this image. So yeah.
I think that everyone that has attended to a workshop for acting has experienced that.
Yeah,
I am quite sure.
Yeah, I think so too. But it's a lot of teachers that don't consider themselves a master, but still have something very clear that they want to make their pupils experience or want to give away. So you don't have to be a master. Yeah.
Can I?
Gianluca, you're next.
Yes, I think that is to answer from different sides. Of course, there is this thing I said that, like Viola Spalding also said, like you teach yourself. So, in a way, you create the experiences that you need. You put yourself in the experiences somehow that you need to learn what you need to learn, in a way. And that I also agree when you said this facilitator. I see myself very much as this facilitator of experience. Create a frame. And I try to have this external point of view, and I create a new frame so that you can keep working on what gives you a sort of struggle in a way. So the relationship as a facilitator. But I think there are many layers. There is also the aspect that in a class there is not just all the individuals. There is the group, which is a person. And this group is sort of there is a process of creation of the group, which goes together with the creation of the alphabet. So there is always a process of alphabetization that must be respected, and this creates a sort of new person in the group. And every day there's a sort of shift, and there's a sort of this person has to be taken care of, which is the group, and it's a difficult work. And this creates this trust that you were talking about, the work on this extra person, which is the group. And then I think there are some just things that I think should be very, very important to be aware of, which is like, when I'm in a room and we do an experience, I look at the experience. So what is the active role of looking? It's a very important thing, because what happens is that there is a process of internalization. We have this process of internalization also with our parents, or very important people that we share very important formational experience. So you internalize these things. So this becomes a sort of idealistic spectator. So to be aware that a teacher that works for a long time with some students in acting somehow is in this idealistic spectator position is a very important thing, because how this internalization process happens can create problems or can be very creative. The other thing is also that the voice of the teacher and the things the teacher says are internalized. So when we talk about the actors looking at himself and talking to himself, there is something in that voice which is the voice of the teacher. So there is a real process of internalization of this voice. We have this. I grew up in a Catholic world. No matter what I think about the Catholic Church, I have a Catholic inner voice in me that I have to work with all the time. I have internalized. It's part of the environment I grew up. It's part of myself. I don't know what I think that is mine, what I think comes from the Catholic Church, or what I think that comes from my father, or what it's a big process. This becomes part of you, So this process of internalization is very important, and also the process of transfer and counter-transfer. All these processes are part of sharing this contract of teaching, and I think I think for me it's important that people are no matter what strategy they use, aware that these processes happens. Yes.
Because from what you're saying, I would also say that yes, you can, of course, as a teacher, try to be a facilitator of experiences, but still, you would make an imprint on the student. The student will internalize the teacher's voice somehow, one way or the other.
But there is also something of you in the students. So this is like the transfer and counter-transfer. And there is something of the
Still, I
students.
would say it's a hierarchy. I would say. That is my opinion. I feel sometimes we try to avoid that it's actually a hierarchy.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, someone is deciding what kind of games you're going to play. And the games
But it's a matter of responsibility, as Karina says, it's a matter of different responsibilities, and our responsibility shift. And this is the other problem we have in the Western world with our technocratic society, where we think learning as something you can measure, so it's something you can give a grade to. So we have people that come to a holistic way of working, which is the art, from a technocratic system. So they have a perception of learning, which is, okay, now I'll learn this and I combine this to this. It's like Lego acting or Lego learning, as I call it, which is a problem. And this is not just a problem, oh, I am aware of that. This is a cultural problem that we all theater schools, I think, in the West, we have to work with. Yes.
Okay, and then Bille.
Yes, there's absolutely a hierarchy. I think we have a lot of sayings that we actually just use without thinking further. I totally agree with almost everything. I think the teacher should provoke, a teacher should frustrate, a teacher is a facilitator, makes frameworks and should disappear and be one of them and whatever. But there's one word that is probably the most important for me when I'm a teacher, and that is love. I try to love my class and my students. That's kind of the core. And that brings, for me, in a way, respect and responsibility. I'm so concerned about this, to get to know all the individuals in this group by taking care of them. And that builds up also a hierarchy. I understand it. I'm absolutely, this love thing is really a responsibility. I'm one of them, but I'm in a response for what is happening over here.
It's almost like you're describing a role of a parent.
It's a little bit like that. Yes, it's a little bit like that, and it needs to give build up the space where these students, these individuals, can make findings. Most secure, most frustrated, most provoked, most encouraged, and whatever it can mean. But there's one thing also with these sayings that I find quite odd, that we are saying everywhere. I hear it, that art can't be taught. You can't teach art. And I find it so contradictory and actually stupid. Why do we then have these art schools? For heaven's sake. I try all the time. I'm a teacher, I'm a pedagogue, I teach art. I really try to find how can we do this. It would be a kind of a nonsense that it wouldn't be taught. I understand that it's not easy, and it's different from science and maths and whatever, but I think it's hypocrisy to say that it can't be taught. I think it's taught, and we're teaching it, and we have art schools. Okay, that's...
Probably also it's been a big changement in the perception about this, I think, the last 20 years. Somebody that wants to react on something or ask, yes?
If I were to apply to drama school, Carmen, Lara, I would
and I asked you, what can I learn at your school that I can't learn at Teaterhögskolan? What would you say?
Nice question. What can you learn?
And vice versa.
Yeah, first we take up now.
Well, first you're asking me to assume everything, that I know every single thing that's happening at Teaterhögskolan.
Well, maybe from an ideological
So,
side.
So I will frame my answer by saying I can tell you what I hope you will learn at our school. Because I first of all don't see that what you would learn is set in opposition to and as an answer to or a critique of this school. Although historically those conversations are very important. Yeah. I think the first thing, in a broad perspective, was that you learn to relate to your practice as an independent artist. So you, in a way, you acquire the questions and the discourse and the different physical, vocal, compositional, improvisational, and critical practices that you need to develop your own theater practice in the independent scene, which if you decide to transfer over to the institutional theaters to work in that way, you would find what from your education suited that, and if also you would know how to look for what you still needed. So you would have a relationship with yourself and your own practice to know, I think I'm missing this, I need to talk to these people or engage with this workshop or study this, so that you have an awareness of the map that you're inside in an international scene and your practice within that. And also, I would hope, a humility about also what you don't know, so that you know that you're not the actor of all actors, but that you're a creative artist who's in relation to other disciplines, scenographers, sound artists, writers, architects, social figures, but that you understand that your practice depends on your relationship with other practitioners, and also that which are not human, your environment, the things in your environment, and I would hope that you also have an awareness of how things are produced, so that you begin to learn that things don't just get born on the stage, but everything emerges from a production process. And I don't just mean the stuff on the stage and the work you do, but the meaning you produce, that it's part of a historical trajectory, and it's produced through different social mechanisms and different politics, and we would hopefully debate that enough that you wouldn't leave with just my view. So,
thanks.
I said too much. But.
Did you want to answer from anyone else? You do want to answer from Gianluca. Okay.
Yeah, I have to agree with what you said. I mean, I'm not going to answer relationship because I really don't know the details also. But I can tell you what I think we do here. So I can answer you saying that you, first of all, you would sort of expand your artistic self, so sort of embody this artistic self that I was talking about before, so create this artistic self that you will become a role, a sort of your professional self. And then the things you will experience will go when if you apply the bachelor, you will experience transformation, which sort of will make you more, hopefully, available to the moment, available to the experience, available to your senses and the kinesthetic response that comes from the doing. You will experience meeting the audience in various forms, in various contracts, in various different environments, and how the audience define you as an artist. You will experience the dynamic between your individual pattern as an artist and the collective group that will become sort of expansion of yourself. So where is your individual pattern and what is the pattern that you create with the others as a generation of people going through this institution. And you will experience your voice, your body, and the expressions of these things from a both physical, also biological point of view. You will start to listen and to interpret the signs that you receive from them in a different way. And hopefully you will learn how to use all these impulses to compose and create structures. And then, if you apply to the master, you will experience how to question your role within the theater room, how to see the professional aspects of theater from other point of view. You will learn of how different premises changes completely your understanding of your profession, and you will find what is your special interest within your role in theater. So if you're an actress, what is really that you want to research with for maybe many, many years. These are the bachelor and master.
Thank you. If nobody has any questions, I have one, and that's more connected to teacher and student again. Through my research, which was very much about also going to workshops, there's quite a lot one expect in acting training from the students. When you're gonna really challenge your intimacy zone and on a physical, psychological, existential level. So there's a lot of trust in this teacher. And also another complicated thing I find, and I might insult half of the audience or even more here, but I think it's for me it's an observation I made, okay? And that's quite many students also want very clear answers. I think clearer and clearer. It seems for me like when the generations go on and things get more and more complex, students seem to want to have more and more simple and clear answers. Ah, now I got it. Which of course is a complicated thing to deal with because we are dealing with complex topics. So I don't know completely what the question here is, but it's this, okay, students asking for concrete, simple answer. How can I be a good, better actor? Give me that tool, and then I will do it, and I train this tool. And then on the other side, you have the teacher that stands there and can somehow also use or misuse that power and say, here's the tool that makes you better. So this exchange of things, I don't know. This relationship is a very complicated relationship, which can make a lot of transference of things that is very unconscious, I think. And somebody of you want to react on this observation?
I think it is important to give certain answers in the moment. If you do it that way, you will go that way. If you do it this way, now we are working on this, we do it this way. And of course, to also encourage to value that for yourself. Always go back to yourself and develop your own method. But you have to train the craft, especially if you're in the bachelor. You have to have a craft in order to get out there. And also create an environment where you can leave that need of answers and being that other area. It is complicated. It is.
It's very hard to get the students to be in an unsecure or unknown place.
Yeah, but I think
stay there.
But also the group of students, and I don't mean just one class. The group of students, bachelor students, master students, and other levels, and other artists, can bring that. If you have an environment and let that environment live, the answer will not be so easy.
Okay, I think we have another question. Where's the mic? Could you send it up here?
Thank you. Sorry, my English is very bad, but I will try to say what I have to say. We had a teacher here at the school called Tommy. I don't remember his last name. And he was the first teacher that asked us about this word trust, that the teachers are thinking a lot about to create a space where the trust is. And he asked us if we trusted each other, because his work is a lot about you have to share stuff that you have never told anybody before, and maybe you haven't thought about it, what the reasons are to yourself. Yeah, psychoanalysis. Yeah, and we found out that we didn't trust each other in the group, in the class, that we trusted each other in some frames, but if we had to share something that we have never told anybody before, we didn't trust each other. And I like that he opened a dialogue about this trust. Yeah, it's just an observation.
And it created more trust in the class?
Yeah, I don't know, but we were more, we thought about it more, and yeah.
More aware.
Yeah, and it was great to have this dialogue about it, not, yeah.
Great. Want to send the mic forward?
Yeah, I just want to ask, like, what kind of trust are you talking about? Like, privately trust or like working trust? Privacy. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Could you send the mic over? Yeah, we stop there. And then further. Yeah. No, up.
Thank you. I just want to say something about the hierarchy. I think that's important as long as it's based on respect. Because being a teacher, I think sometimes can be hard because you have to be unpopular at times and you have to take responsibility. But for me personally, I feel more free if a teacher dares to take that position and creates a room that is creative but within a frame. Yeah.
Interesting. Mm. It's we have such an, I said this once earlier also, we have such an anti-hierarchic culture. Me, for instance, I have a huge problem with authorities all my life. And then to go into a class and be the authority is very uncomfortable. Yeah. It's also a strange culture we have somehow to deal with this.
Needed, I think.
Of course, absolutely, you're completely right. Kamlara wants to reply on this.
Thank you for saying that. I think it's really important. And it's somehow connected to this question about what kind of trust. And I think that we have to step into that role. It's a role. It's a social role. We have to step into that role and be willing to take the risk that comes with being in this structure, this hierarchy. And that means, and as I said before, that we are the one to fail first. We have to be willing to be the one to be wrong first, or the students don't feel safe. And so if the teacher's not willing to be the one who falls the furthest, how can anyone in the room do anything? So we have to be willing to, if it's a mask we have to wear, or if it's a genuine love for power, as long as it's a clear structure and it's hopefully temporary, that you can own your own process when you leave the room. Right?
This is probably also very important. I mean, to have the role of the teacher in the room and have the role of student in the room, and but outside it's also to take roles.
And I think as teachers we have a responsibility to be clear about what's going on with us when we walk in a room, and if we understand the stuff that we're bringing in and the anxieties that we're bringing in. It doesn't mean it has to be psychodrama, that we have to deal with all of that publicly, but that we're conscious of it so that we're in control of the role that we take, and also we know when to let it go. We know when we're being asked to kind of drop it and say, okay. Because it's what's interesting about being a teacher is also you are very vulnerable. I mean, you know, it only works if we all collectively agree on some of the vocabulary, the alphabet. I mean, if we agree to use the tools that we've brought in the room, but you know, there's also a possibility of revolution, or revolt, and absence. So it's a contract.
So each class is a specific context and contract with new roles. We are getting close to the end, okay? So now I will ask you to be very brief, okay? Not huge questions or something. Preferably short comments, okay? Two there, okay. One there, and then one there, and then stop.
This is might be a big question. I'll try.
Ask the question. We don't.
Yeah, every acting teacher I've ever had started out as an actor or a director. But I found there's a big difference between the ones that left the field to be a pedagogue and never return, and the ones that are constantly working in the field and coming back to the school working. And for me, I find it much more easy to build a trust and a working relation with ones that are still out there risking something. And I was wondering if you ever consider this problem, because you have there are both sides of this here in this panel.
Yes. I think it's a very interesting question, but I'm not sure if any of you will give clear answers on that. But I completely agree.
What do you mean by both sides?
Okay, this is my guess after listening to your lectures. Ville is still working as an actor. Are you all still working in the field?
Yeah, but with the different activities, different approaches. Sometimes depends on how you define it. What are you looking for?
Okay, this might be a
No,
long
but
discussion.
I think also I mean research. I mean you can study to be a psychologist or psychoanalyst, but then you can start to research when you have done your. You don't forcibly need to be a psychologist sitting with people and talk to them. You can do research on psychology as well. It can also be an image of this. I don't know.
I think it's important to note that also, I can only speak for myself, but as someone who's the head of a department, who's head of a program, that I find it very important that the people who are working regularly with our students, they're practicing artists. So I'm not their main acting teacher, for example. I mean, I'm at administration of the program. I'm very active in the field, but not as a practicing actor. The ones who work with them regularly are either practicing artists who come directly as guest teachers, or the regular teachers are practitioners. So, I mean, I think to have both sides and have a range and define that, it's a longer conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a short comment, because I asked Leonard the same question. He's no longer here, but and he said that for him, his main role is to empower the students and to pass on his knowledge through passion. And I think those words are very important, because you need a teacher to have a passion for his field or her field and feel that they can pass on something. Not to say it's an absolute knowledge. He was very caught up with that word of, I know something for myself and I want to give it to you. And you can take it on as knowledge or as a thinking process, but if the teacher doesn't think that he or she has a knowledge, then I think it's difficult for me as a student to trust it.
Okay.
Just a little comment on that as well. I just feel like I've learned more with working with the people in my year and with the workshops than I have kind of from the mentor or the teacher. And I think it's about the teacher kind of opening up and putting down a structure also, so we can learn a lot from each other and like by observation, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not an expert on any of this, but some of the things I have experienced is that about the thing that we're always looking for the answer of how to become a better actor. If you're looking for the answer of the teacher, I think you're looking at the wrong place. Everybody talking about trust, you know, and they want so much trust because you have to be brave. That's really, the more brave you are, the less trust you need. Because you have to expose yourself on the scene. And it's in that moment when you are brave and expose yourself, that's when you actually learn the most. You have to look inside yourself to find that. I think it was Ridley who said something about you can't learn a system. You can just, you can learn the theory, but acting is a very psychophysical thing. So you need to experience it and feel it to really understand it. You can't just read about it in a book.
Okay, then we have a last, the very last comment over here. Yeah, would you send over the mic? Yeah, it's the last
one. I'm just wondering that you guys have different techniques and methods to teach us to be actors, but I wonder in the end, do you guys believe that your ways are like the right way to become an actor?
Sure. Yes or no? Do you believe that your way is the right way to become an actor? Yes or no? Or
Yes.
maybe? No, no answers longer than one sentence.
I want to say that I really believe in my way, and I think it works for me, and I can share this with you, and if it works somehow for you, then it's great. If it doesn't, and there's a lot of people that will probably meet the same experience as me, that would react to the same metaphors. We can also say that the history of acting is the history of metaphors to transform, the students. So, there are different metaphors because people react in different ways to different things.
Okay. No, I also have to allow the rest of you to answer. Just short, very short.
Of course I have to believe in what I'm teaching, otherwise I wouldn't teach it. But I'd love to be surprised and taken somewhere else.
Camilla and Carolina and Ville, you want also? Short.
The first thing, I would never call my way mine. It's a way that's a combination of many teachers. And the other thing is that I see students doing really interesting work, and I don't feel like I'm taking credit for that. I think they are the ones who've done the work with a lot of really amazing teachers, which I feel lucky to have been a part of. But I think it's important that our way isn't one person's way.
Then Ville, you want a short remark as well?
I said yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you for sharing this with us, and Gianluca has some very important information.
No, now we are moving right away into the next thing of the program, which is today we have the kickoff of Contesto, right? Woo! So